it's great to have you on the call, and I'm going to try and add some value to you this afternoon. Kimberly, hello. Carrie, Meredith, Sarah. What I'm trying to do now with content is just to make you think and to spark ideas, because you can never change anything in a short presentation. It's just not possible. So my objective in my presentation is just to stir you up, to give you uh, food for thought and motivation. Okay. And so this presentation, I wanted to give you really three nuggets, something you can grab onto and really get something from. And I think these are the three things. I've distilled away everything else I'm working on and doing to distill them down to these 3 points. And you may have heard me say them before, you may not. Maybe you've heard me speak before, maybe you've not. I don't care, because these things matter, and I'm going to keep saying them until people start changing, because it's by implementing these things. Like there's a whole lot of marketing fancy dance stuff that you can go out and do, but honestly, if you do that without getting this is your foundation, this is your base. If you get this right, the rest of veterinary practice gets so much easier. And if you get it wrong, more customers doesn't fix it. If you get this base wrong, it just makes it harder. It gives you more problems. More team members just makes it harder. It gives you more problems. So you've got to get these fundamentals right. If you get these right, then everything else gets a lot better. Okay, so let's just crack into it, shall we? All right. So just as we're talking through, maybe you would type for me what the struggles you have with your team into that chat box there. So if you are not sure how to use the chat box, and there should be a little control bar on your screen just now. Zoom is fantastic. It's really super easy to use. And one of those options should be chats. And so ping something into the chat box, even if it's just to introduce yourself and tell me where you are on planet Earth right now. That would be kind of cool. But share your struggles in there, okay? And I'm going to try and, we may not address them just specifically in the content, but if I can add some value to you spending an hour with me just now, then that would be fab. So ping them in there, okay? What your common struggles, and I want you to think about your team, okay? Those of you who know me know that there's two areas I focus on. One are team dynamics and performance, and the other is marketing. And we're going to focus a lot more on team, because I think that's the bigger win. That's the bigger pain point, okay? So those of you that know me, and I see a few familiar faces on there, forgive me just 1 minute of self-indulgence. If you have never met me before, then I travel all over the world speaking. And the reason I do that is because I've built up a reasonable amount of experience in running veterinary hospitals in the United Kingdom. I've been head vet of 18 doctor group practice there, also responsible for business development. I'm on my third independently owned hospital at the moment, for 2 in Australia. I've got 1 in London just now. I've also been chief veterinary officer of a group out in Australia as well. And now I work almost 100% in the coaching and business development space for you guys. So I still have a practice, but now that runs very smoothly without me ever being in it. I've owned it for 3 years, and I've been in it exactly 10 times now. And we've grown 5 times the size in the time I've owned it. And I tell you that not to brag, okay? I tell you that because that's been possible by implementing the systems that I now talk about. And it's a really lovely two-way street, because sometimes I get crazy ideas. Okay, a lot I get crazy ideas, and that's my sandbox for getting into and tinkering with ideas and testing them out. Okay, so I'm never going to present stuff that's purely theoretical to you. In fact, very rarely am I going to do that. I'm going to present stuff that I've gone out and learned and implemented or adapted for veterinary medicine and put into practice there. And now I share those things with you. So most of my time is spent speaking or coaching people or helping people build systems. And that's what my job, and that's what VetX International does. So the very definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. Yet we go to conference after conference after conference, and we don't mean to do the same thing over, do we? But we end up doing it. And sometimes we end up doing it because we just get overwhelmed. And other times because we haven't made a plan to bring the team with us and they resist us. But inevitably, things remain the same. And that's why we go to conferences so much and hear the same stuff over and over and over. or you get a new face or a new accent, and you still go, I don't want that. That's crazy. Okay, we're not just going for the social. It's nice, but I want your life to be better. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. All right, and if you've heard me say this before and you're already bored, then you can jump off. But if you've heard it before and you're not doing it, please stay with me. And if you've never heard it, then this is some of the best advice I could ever give you. So we're going to talk about recruiting. I think recruiting is possibly our biggest opportunity. We're going to talk about then our leadership style, our default leadership style, and why that needs to be changed in order for us to get away from this hamster wheel that we're all on in veterinary practice management. And then the third thing is, I really want us to kill the appraisal stone dead. Like if I get to the end of my career and we've achieved that, and only that, I should be fairly chuffed with myself. And the whys will become clear as we go through the presentation. All right, so let's start with hiring. So most of the time, we're doing this the wrong way around. Okay, most of us hire way too fast. Now, caveat, that's when you get applicants. But we hire some from the point of receiving an application to giving them the job. That process is way too quick and not rigorous enough. And we fire way too slowly, and we do that because we're nice people, right? We don't like to fire people. Like that's kind of a mean thing to do. So I suggest what we've got to do is flip this on its head and turn things the other way around. And I've developed a little process which I want to share with you as to how I do things and how that's made a difference. Because what I used to do when I was head vet of a big vet hospital, I used to hire when somebody would quit. You know the scariest thing to a manager. You know the conversation is somebody asks for a chat, and it's somebody you know has perhaps not been that happy for a while, and they ask for the chat. Okay, that's not you to them. That's a different chat, right? It's the one where they want to talk to you, and they sound awfully sorry. And what do? They give you the little manila envelope, which has got the resignation letter in it, and you freak out because you know it's hard to hire. You know someone else is going to have to pick up the bits, and that means stress, and that increases the likelihood of someone else or some other bit of your team breaking and the roof falling in. And that's one of the scariest thoughts we have as managers, right? It's a horrible feeling. So we get in panic mode, and then we put the same advert out that brought somebody in who wasn't a great fit before. And so we get, if any applicants, we get whatever applicants are drawn to that advert, which is probably the same as everybody else's advert. And then we hire them because they fog a mirror and have a pulse, which are two criteria you could use, but are not necessarily the best criteria to use when we're trying to build effective and high-performing teams. Then we bring them in. We don't give them an awful lot of training. As in, we give them a set of keys, and if we're very good, we might have a performance manual, a big, thick, chunky folder full of like bits of paper that nobody else has ever read either, and you just about gouged your eyeballs out putting together. It was so dull. Chuck them in with very little other training and wonder why it all went wrong. And I'm as confused as you why that wouldn't work. And it's a joke, of course, but it's much more close to the truth. Like I'm amping that up a little bit, but not that much in a lot of instances, right? And actually, the reason we end up doing that is because we're so time poor, and we're so time poor because we're stuck in our hamster wheels. And I'm going to come on to why that is in part 2. But it is an epic mistake, and doing it like that ensures that we're going to stay on our hamster wheel. Because what happens when somebody gets brought in that way is they're not going to read your rule book. They're going to come in with their own playbook based on what they have learned is the right way to function or survive in other people's practices. And the chances of that being the right way to function or survive in your practice, if you have any form of curated culture whatsoever, the chances of that being the right way to function are very low. Okay, so what can we do differently to that? Well, here you go. Here is how I recommend that you set up your hiring process. Okay, so the first step is, before we even get to the point of needing to hire anyone, let alone somebody leaving or anybody getting fired, this is just like almost a number one thought exercise that anybody in business should be doing. And there are very easy ways to establish your values and slightly more hard ways to work out your objectives, but they're perfectly doable, okay? we have to know what it is we're here to do, and we have to know why it is we all show up to work every day. Okay, most people in veterinary practices show up for the animals. They are not showing up for the practice. They're not showing up for their team. They're showing up because those little animals need us. Without us, there's no one. So it's almost like we're being held to ransom. You know, people are going to work not in great frames of mind, not bringing their A game, but they're going to work in practices that frequently have blame cultures. Not saying yours does, I don't know, but frequently go to work in clinics that have got a blame culture where failure is punished or mocked, and they're not safe places where growth is going to happen, right? So I think we have to have a fundamental look at what our baseline, why do we do this is, and document that, articulate why it is. Okay, for me in my clinic, I believe a life with an animal is a life well spent, or a life better spent. Okay, and our purpose is to ensure as many of the clients as we can reach as possible, ensure as long and as good a quality of life with that pet as possible, because we think that that life will be better for it. Their stress will be better. Their joy will be happier. Their exercise, the physical benefits, the emotional, mental benefits, they're all better with a pet. That's why we show up to work every day. And that's what we say in our job adverts. That's what we say in our team meetings. We're constantly reminding people. And that's what gets us through the tougher moments. Okay, so that's our why. But then what are our values? And the values are this is one of those really nebulous concepts in leadership. It's like, oh, what are our values? What are our shared values? And it is very rare to have a practice that's actually done that. It's very rare to find a practice that's done the work to actually find out and articulate and define what those values actually are. Okay, and if you're interested, I can share a little exercise for you to do afterwards. But for me, and the reason I was playing Doctor Who theme music at the start there, was because when I did this exercise, it turns out keeping your word, adventure, fun, doing the right thing, all of the things, fixing, helping other people, all of the things that the little man in his little police box, Doctor Who, is a fiction character from UK TV who flies around in an old English police box, helping people. All of those things were a match for my values. And suddenly it became really obvious that there was suddenly a really obvious narrative. There was a metaphor for what my practice could be. It was going to be, I was going to be Doctor Who, and the practice was the TARDIS, the space ship where he flies around. Now that might sound completely bonkers to you. You might have no idea what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter, because if I'm trying to hire somebody with the same values, if I can relate and weave elements of that show through everything from my job adverts to the way we work to the daft stuff we do in the practice, then I start to build a place of culture. I start to create values and I start to extend culture out beyond those values. The hiring process starts not with the job advert, but it starts with the values and the culture, because that's what people talk about. When somebody comes in for their interview, the thing that's going to sell them the job the most, absolutely the most, isn't what you say in the room. It's how they interact with the team, how at home they feel, how safe they feel. And so focusing on those values first and foremost, I just can't even emphasize how important that is. Next step down, your job advert. Okay, and this is where I like to have a bit of fun, because most people are writing job adverts and they're trying not to stand out from the crowd because they don't want to look unprofessional or silly or have other people judge you. Okay, but the whole point of recruitment, it is marketing. It is a process via which you have to stand out from the crowd in your own unique, wonderful way. And so a fear of doing that means you write the job advert like everybody else's, or some bozo somewhere on the recruitment course told you, this is how you write a professional job advert. And it's as boring as heck. And it probably contains the word progressive practice, whatever that means. And so we post the job ad. It looks like everybody else's. It's based on location, money, toys, and being progressive. That's your job advert. And we wonder why it doesn't stand out from the crowd. We wonder why nobody applies for it. And so I say, once you have a very clear idea of what your business is about and what you stand for, you then map out precisely who the person that you want to fit your business is. So What are their values? What skills must they have? What psychometric profile are you looking for? Um, what attributes must they have? What qualities must they have? What is their character like? You have to define this, because once you've defined that, you've built an avatar, a virtual version of what this perfect employee would look like. And now we can write a job advert to target that. One that speaks authentically of our culture. One that tugs on the heartstrings of that one unique individual with those traits and with those beliefs. And when you do that, your job ads start to look kind of interesting. Dare I say, kind of crazy. Okay, so I'm just gonna flip gears now, and I'm gonna show you one of my job adverts for a veterinary nurse. Okay, so please ping me in the chat box. Just let me know you can see this. Okay, so you should be looking at a screen that says Vet Nurse Unicorn VNU required for happy vet practice in Northwest London. Can you see that? Just ping me in the chat box. So a quick yay or nay if you can see that. And I will holding position until you get. Great. Okay. Thank you, Keith and Meredith and Sarah. Okay. So how many of you feel comfortable writing a title like Vet Nurse Unicorn? Oh my God, it's so unprofessional. No, it's not. It's authentic to what my practice is about. It's fun. It's bonkers. It is a bit, we do have fun. We do have silly things going on. Like in my practice in Australia, guess what? When you put an IV line in an animal and you don't want to leave the drip in, well, we developed a system that when you put an IV in an animal, you put a picture of Darth Vader, because I'm a sci-fi nerd, and my team are all sci-fi nerds. Darth Vader, a little Darth Vader clip went on the front of the kennel, right? And it stayed there until that catheter was removed. So no animals would go home, because we knew in our process the person doing the discharge must look at the front of the kennel, and if the Darth Vader is on there, that animal has a catheter in it and needs to be checked and that catheter removed. Now, once we took the catheter out, guess what the thing became? Became Yoda. Of course it did. So we put Yoda on the front, right? And so we were able to build a fun thing into our process that is kind of cool. Now, if you're writing about that sort of thing in your job ad, you're writing about how goofy you are, okay? So then we go through, and I'm not going to dwell on the full job advert right now, but suffice to say, I'll pull out some bits for you, okay? So speaking of the team, when you come to visit us, you'll sense the difference for sure. The vibe is good, and though we work hard, we try have fun doing our job. Clients and visitors tell us, they do. Everyone tells us the practice has great energy, and it's generated by the funky team that we have there, okay? So let's get down, okay? And keep going. And I want to show you just the last part of this, okay? It's highlighted in yellow, okay? So finally, at the end of the job ad, you'll notice also that is a very long job advert, okay? Because I'm looking for people who are detail focused, and detail focused read they want lots of detail, okay? So a short ad isn't going to cut it, okay? A short ad is not going to stand out from everyone else's short advert. So finally, and again, we want to show off our sense of fun, okay? So to be considered for this role, you must be a registered veterinary nurse, have a pointy horn growing out your forehead, and an extreme love of galloping hard under rainbows. We're goofing around. But I bet a bunch of you goof around in your prep area all day long. Yet you write a stuffy job advert doesn't reflect the culture that you have, okay? So what I'm saying here is, yeah, don't be afraid to write a job advert that reflects who you are. It's specific about what you want. And if you do that, I think you're going to have much more success in attracting the right person. And by the way, when you've got a good job advert, because people respond and they say things like, oh my God, that was a great job advert. If I lived 2,000 miles closer to you, I'd apply there right away. And they're sharing that advert with their friends. If it's engaging people in a very emotional, deep way that moves them, then that advert's going to go. So take heart from that. Look for feedback. And honestly, I think that's one of the great things that posting adverts up onto social media can do for you, is you get immediate feedback on the quality of the advert. Like if you post an advert into an employment forum or an employment group and it's crickets, nobody's engaging, there's a good chance that's just not that good an advert. When you post an advert in and people are responding and they're going crazy for that advert, and people always go crazy for our adverts, and our vet one's even crazier, you know you're going to get engagement there, okay? All right, so let's keep cracking on. So that's the laser target job advert. Now, next thing, do not let anybody in your building just because they showed up with a resume and a cover letter. Okay, you have to make sure that they're willing to do some work, because our hard work. It is hard work in practice, isn't it? They're not going to show up and stand around and do nothing. They're going to show up and drown for that first month, because the veterinary practice work is hard. We're busy. So I want people who are willing to put in the effort at this early stage to get the job. And I also want to establish if they can actually do the job or not. So one of the things I always do is I send people tasks. Okay, and I call them quizzes. Okay, so I'll send people out, like for example, my nurses, if I'm hiring a nurse technician, then what I will do is I will send out a little email acknowledging that they sent in their resume and say, hey, thanks for sending in your resume. Really, really loved reading it. I probably haven't read it at this point. We would like to put you through to the next round of the interview. In order to get into the next round, what I need you to do is complete our little quiz questions. So I've attached 3 quiz questions that allow you to demonstrate your knowledge and skills to do this job. Please complete the quiz questions and turn them around back to me in the next 72 hours to be considered for the next step. I'm sure you'll find them no problems, but if you do have any questions about this, please give me a yell. Best, Dave Nicol. And that's what I'll send out. And so we'll send out, for our nurses, for example, we'll send out like a little instrument recognition video. I'll send out a little video of hygiene. So I messed up one of my exam rooms completely. Like had dust bunnies, blood spatters, pizza on the computer, like ketamine bottles out, sharps in the sink, all sorts of things. Like I did loads. And I just took a little sweep shot video. And the question was, please list as many challenges or problems as you can see in the room, and send that back to me. It was simple as that. So 1, what am I getting? 1, they're willing to do some work to get the job. So work ethic. 2, they can use technology and make the video work and read email and open email. So some technical skills. 3, the actual question I ask, the attention to detail. Now, if they're not very detailed, they're going to miss things. The good people will get all the things you meant to be in there. The super anal detailed people will tell you things that were wrong with the room that you didn't even think was wrong with the room. Right? It's like, wait, hey, that's not a problem. The room's meant to be like that, right? It allows people to grade on the curve. And I think that is epically good for you, because if particularly for higher volume positions, it allows you to separate the bad from the good from the outstanding candidates. And really, you only want to spend your time on the outstanding if you want to build a grade A business. So that's your use of tests, and I'll generally send people 3 things. Okay. Next step up is your interview. So when you do your interview, bring people in, and again, I break it down into half practical, half questions. And so I'm going to get them to do more tasks when they come from their interview. What tasks are you going to get them to do, Dave? Well, great question. The tasks are going to be the things you're going to ask them to do in their everyday job. Okay, so if it's a nursing role, for example, let's have an animal out to handle, or let's ask them to handle an animal and do an anesthetic and monitor an anesthetic. Okay, not on their own. I'm going to have somebody shadow them because maybe they're not used to our circuits or the drugs that we use, but that's fine. If they're not, they're still, if a good person's going to ask questions about that, they're going to confirm, is it the right thing to do? And then they're going to get on and do it. The person who's scared witless is going to block up in headlights, clam up, or they're going to ignore all your things and do their own thing. You're going to start again seeing people separating out, grading on the curve. Okay, so that's part of it. I'm going to set them up with maybe an hour's worth of practical stuff. The other thing I want them to do is interact with my team, and this is some of my team over here on the left there. The team are the most important thing, and the team get to make the decision. If the person is a bad fit for the team, it can be massively disruptive. So that person has to go in and hang out and interact with the team, and the team then are going to feed back to me. And then the other half of the interview, and maybe it's not half, maybe it's just like a half-hour sit-down. I'm going to ask them questions about their experience and about how their experience pertains to what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for a dentist, I'm going to ask them about, tell me about a challenging dental case you had recently and get them to talk about real life stuff. I'm not going to ask them, hey, can you do dentals? And then they can go yes or no. I want them talking about real life stuff. And then I want to dig into that. Okay, those of you that know me know that I do a podcast called Blunt Dissection, and that is a question. That is just it's almost like an interview technique where you just go down a rabbit hole and you keep asking questions. What about that? Why did you do that? What were you thinking of? Because that's where you get to the real story. That's where you get understand what somebody's values are. Why did they make certain decisions? We all make decisions, right or wrong. But the thing you really want to know is, why do people make their decisions? Because they're the principles upon which they'll make their future decisions as well. Remember, the best indicator of future performance is past performance. The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. So get them to talk about real situations and real behaviors, okay? And then finally, once you've decided somebody's a great fit for the team, don't just chuck them in and just go, here's the key, off you go, I'm away, and leave them to it. You onboard them. And onboarding is a process in itself that can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. You go into it with the mindset this person's probably not going to be amazing at their job for 12 months. But you give them all of the basic building blocks they need to do the job well in that first couple of week period. Okay, so where they're meant to be, when they're meant to be, what equipment they need to do their job, and the training on that equipment they require. Certainly the basic stuff, how your practice management system operates, what your price list is, what your estimating protocol is, your policies, procedures, so that things like vaccines, all of those things. So day one, they can go in and be effective in their job and not look silly. So they can start to get over that sort of change curve that they're on, which is excitement followed by the trough of despair as they feel like a fish out of water and they're overwhelmed. It's that training that pulls them back up into the higher performing zone where they start to get a hang of the job within your practice. And that's the super important part that onboarding does. It starts bonding them into the team and making them feel much more like part of that team. Okay, that is what good hiring looks like. And the job is not done until that person can do their job effectively and is a high performing member of their team. Now, I'm seeing comments pinging in there. In the interest of time, I know there's going to be some fun stuff in there. I'm keeping on station here, so I'm going to come back to those. So please keep pinging in your comments, and we're going to review all of them. It's a big oneer at the end, okay? Okay, so that's our hiring process, all right? And I'm touching on something in sort of half an hour, 20 minutes, that took me probably 5 years to perfect. So, again, my objective here is to make you aware of this, that there is a better way of doing this, that if you can handle it, it's going to get you a much better quality of person. And a much better quality of person is going to be less of a hassle for you. It's going to take on more. It's going to make your life as a manager easier, okay? Unicorns, that's how you go about finding them, all right? Vet nurse unicorns in my face. Okay, so hire slow, very carefully, and if you get it wrong, and you will get it wrong, no process is without its failures. Okay, I still hire the wrong person from time to time, but honestly, the kindest thing is to let the wrong person go, because all it's going to be is stressful for them, for you. Just admit, don't put the blame on them. Accept the blame yourself, and do it within the time frame that saves you HR issues, which is different in every country. So do consult an HR professional in your region, wherever you are. And I'm at pains to point out, that is not me. I'm not a legal beagle. I'm a performance expert. Okay, but before you let anybody go, just consult with somebody in the know as to what the legalities are and how to go about that. And regardless of those, good practice is to be kind on the way out. Okay, karma will come around one way or another. So be kind. I just think that's a good value. All in. All right. So let's talk about the next thing. And these three things are completely connected, by the way. Our addiction to the hamster wheel is epic. It's epic. And this really, I think, boils down to a question of our leadership technique. Okay, and for a lot of us, and I've often mulled and mused on where this paradigm of leadership comes from, and I think it comes from a variety of places. I think it comes from the way our parents have been with us. I think it comes from the way our role models, particularly our clinical role models, were in practice and at university, where ego was often king. I think it also comes from what we see in movies. And if you think about movies, action movies particularly, of which Hollywood seems capable of producing only action movies, we're all brought up on these things, and the sequence of events is life is such and such a way. Something bad happens. The hero, there's that word, then has to go through some trial by fire, the hero's journey, in which the life caves in on their head. They go through a period of despondency. They pick themselves up. There's this rebirth, regeneration, and then single-handedly they kill the baddies, get the girl, save the entire planet, or whatever your gender version of that is. And it's such a nonsense. I mean, apart from the fact it's an action movie and everything's fake, that's just not the way leadership works. But it's the way we've had it drummed into us by media and by our peer group forever, isn't it? This Victorian factory system era where the ruling classes believe themselves to be far better and above anybody in the working classes. So we developed this it was non-complex manual labor where people were told what to do. You do it that way, which is my way, or the highway, you're out. That's still the prevailing way that many people lead. And then the other way that we lead, of course, so that's command and control. And it's really the control element is feeling like we've got to do everything. And some of that comes from our own insecurities. Some of that comes from a misunderstanding of where the power of leadership actually is. And we believe that in order to be taken as credible leaders, we have to be good at everything. So that means, particularly doctors suffer from this. To be a good leader, you have to be the fastest surgeon. You'd be able to do ultrasound, do dentistry, answer all of the clinical questions, answer all of the client questions, know how to fix the photocopier, know how to make the best cup of tea, know where to go get the best sandwiches, know blah, 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 be like everything to everyone. Jack of all, master of none. And so what happens in that situation, this is really your hub and spoke model, is people show up to work and they run into a problem. And then the first thing they do is come to you. And they go, hey, Dave, the photocopier's fixed, or the dental machine doesn't work. What should I do? And of course, as the leader, we like to feel good about ourselves. So we tell them what to do, don't we? We tell them what to do for two reasons. One, it feels good. But two, if we had to show them what to do, A, that takes lots of time. And B, if we leave them to do it themselves, they're only going to break it, mess it up. So we're going to have to do it ourselves in any case. So I may as well get it done myself now, right? That's the way that most of us lead, because it's the way that other people that we were learning from led. But it's a crazy way to lead, because how many people's jobs are you actually doing at one time? You ever had the feeling like you didn't get anything you were meant to do done, but you did a whole ton of work? Like, this is why that's happening, because you're doing everybody's job or a bit of everybody's job. You have responsibility for everything in your practice, if this is you. And everyone else has responsibility or accountability for nothing, which is a disaster of leadership. It's anti-leadership. And it actually feels quite good for you until you break, until you have a nervous breakdown, right? And it feels pretty crappy for everyone else. Well, actually, it feels comfortable for everyone else. But let me tell you something about comfort. If you're in a state of comfort, you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. I'm doing a keynote presentation at the Ontario Veterinary Medical Association on Saturday, and this is the key theme that I'm doing the keynote on, is growth is everything when it comes to running a happy team. Like, if you're able to help the people around you grow, then you meet almost all of their needs as human beings, and you're going to help meet your needs as human being as well. But when we have anti-leadership, reverse leadership, or we're the hub at the center of the wheel model leadership, command and control style, nobody grows except our workload. That's the only thing that's growing. Nobody else is growing. They're just little robots that work until they can't do it, and then they ask you for some help. Okay? So they're bored, and their human needs aren't being met. and they'll stagnate. And when they stagnate, they're going to look for growth opportunities, and that they're going to find someplace else. So in order to keep people engaged, what we have to do is flip our model of leadership around. And this is where I really like you to think of the model of you're a gardener, and gardeners start out with little seeds in pots, and eventually they've got, if they do their job right, they've got plants that eventually will bear fruit, flower, and are beautiful to look at and bear fruit. Okay, but they start with seeds that are pretty useless unless you're a bird. And what you do is you plant that seed in that little pot, and if you water it and you put it in the greenhouse, the hothouse, eventually that seed will germinate and a little sapling will emerge. Now, if you took that sapling and put it out in the cold right away, it would die. It couldn't cope with that. And if you left it in the same pot, it'll stop growing because the roots can only get to a certain size, and it won't grow anymore. So eventually, if you do the right thing and you help that sapling to grow, then you move it to another pot. Now, you put it in that other pot, it's going to rattle around and feel insecure, right? So you've got to put more compost in. As it gets bigger, you might need to put a little stake alongside its stem, and as you move out of the glasshouse, you might need to put a little tie just to support it when the wind blows. This is a phenomenal paradigm for leadership. And let me flip that into the veterinary world for you, okay? One of my best ever hires, in fact, I didn't hire her, so that's not true, but one of my best ever team members is a girl called Sandy. And the first time I met her, I was sure I was going to fire her because she was in this little plant pot. She wasn't comfortable. She was in a little pot and she just hadn't been watered for a while, and so she was wilting. She was pretty close to dying, figuratively speaking. And the practice that I bought was broken, really broken. It had a bad culture, bullying, they were referring all their work away. There was no growth, it was just stagnation. Everybody was metaphorically dying. And so I met this burned out looking, tired person, and I thought, she's not going to be a good fit for me. Well, then I started to make some changes, and some people resisted and some people got on board and were behind it. And one of the people that seemed to be behind it was Sandy. And so I thought, I get this wrong. And so, long story short, opportunity came up, and we sent her off to college to start studying. So she was not even a trainee nurse at that point. We sent her to college to start studying. That was her first plant pot. And she was a little scared and nervous because she came from a tough background. But soon enough, it became obvious in her marks coming back that we might have a rock star in our hands. And Sandy was top of the class. Within 6 months, she was acing the class. And she graduated top of her class. And I was like, very interesting. Her attitude's first class at work. She does everything she's been asked to do. So when the opportunity came up and I was thinking about having to recruit for a new head nurse because the one I had decided to find another boss, and that's another story. And then I had a choice to make. What do I do with Sandy? Is she quite good enough to be a head nurse? No. But does she look like she's got the potential? Can she grow? Yeah. All right, let's give her a shot. Now, instead of hoarding the tasks and doing her job for me, when she came to me and asked me questions, guess what I did? Well, she didn't know the answers because it was the first time she did it. Then I trained her. And we documented the processes, and she was real good at that. Now, if she came and asked me a second time, did I tell her the answer? I asked her a question back, and I said, how do you think you want to do that? Or have you checked out the training manual? Okay. And very quickly, guess what started happening? Sandy stopped asking me questions, and Sandy got on with her job, and Sandy grew into this plant pot. And there was never a challenge that I set Sandy that she didn't grow and grow and grow. And eventually, I knew one day I would lose her. That's the risk with this, is people, if you do your job right, they're going to outgrow the plant pots you can give them unless you've got ambitions to grow your business big, right? So eventually the day came where Sandy was going to leave. And I knew that day would come, but I was going to be proud of her because she'd been with me for 3.5 years. And she'd gone from this broken, wilted little flower or little stem into this blossoming flower that could now go into a specialty referral hospital and ace it in that place as well. And I can tell this story, and I know that I also gained a lifelong friend by having that approach to Sandy. Okay, I compared that with my original efforts in managing people, where I was the custodian of the information and I would tell them what to do. And the quality of their development, the quality of my relationship with them doesn't bear comparison. And the quality of my work and my first go at leadership in the UK before I moved to Australia, I was on the track to burnout because I had the wrong paradigm of leadership in my head. When I moved away from hub and spoke to being the gardener, that's when everything changed. That's when it became sustainable and enjoyable. And that's when culture changed as well. You see, your behavior as a leader is going to set the tone for everything in your practice. So my suggestion to you is that you always want to be the gardener and you never want to be the hub and spoke. Okay? So get good at gardening. Build your gardening toolkit if you want your business to grow and you want it to be sustainable for you as well. Okay. So I'm going to finish up with this one. I don't have to spend too long on this one. I'm just going to make the case for killing the appraisal. Okay. So the appraisal is one of my most hated things in management. And it's not just my most hated. Let's be absolutely honest. Pop in the chat box if you totally adore doing the annual appraisal or the annual review with your team. If this is just the thing that lights your fire and you just dig it. And also pop in the box if your team totally dig the annual review as well. You know, the truth is nobody digs the annual review because, well, this is why. Never let it be said I don't spend big on my slides. So this is what veterinary performance management looks like. Okay, we start up at the top at 12 o'clock by doing stuff and trying stuff, right? Then when that stuff doesn't work, we as the manager get annoyed. Okay, now the next step round to yell, actually we might get annoyed for quite a little while, and there might be a little feedback loop here which says, actually I don't say anything because I'm not that good at giving feedback and I'm uncomfortable with it, so I say nothing until the point at which I explode, and then I yell. And then what happens when I yell at somebody or do the annual review is not that we do and try more, it's that people leave or people get disgruntled. Or you know, people just get upset, and you know, oftentimes, like there's a stronger correlation, certainly in the businesses that I've worked in and observed, with having to move into a recruitment cycle after performance review, because we don't do performance review very well, and we've got the timeframes all wrong, and we've really got the purpose of that whole thing inappropriate. Okay, so this is sort of the current performance cycle in veterinary practices. All right. Now, there's a few things you need in order to run performance management well. Okay, the first two we touched on already. Right at the bottom, we need a solid foundation. We need to know what our values are. Then we need to extend what those values are and articulate them into behavior statements that make it clear what the rules of engagement within our practices are. That's the next step up. The next step up, we need objectives for our business. What is this business here to do? Financially, clinically, with its team. And with underneath those business objectives, in order for that business to achieve those objectives, what objectives, so that's OBS as objectives, what objectives must my managers have, must my veterinarians have, must my nursing staff or technicians have, must my auxiliaries or kennel assistants have, and must my customer service group have? What things do these people all have to get done so my business achieves its objectives? And then right at the top, what are our standards of care? Now you get more granular as you move up this sort of this tower. Okay, so the values are single words. The behavior statements are really a global set of standards we expect everyone to adhere to. And then the objectives silo down into probably about 10 areas that we have to give some specificity in what we're expecting our people to achieve. And then they must all total together to allow the business to achieve its objectives. So these things are all interlinked. Now the standards of care are like our operations manual. Okay, how do we open the clinic at the start of the day? How do we cash up? How do we place an IV? How do we treat dogs that come in with otitis externa? How do we greet customers on the phone? Those things are all in your standards of care, and that's where it can get real granular, okay? But at the performance level, I'm interested in behavior standards and objectives. So let's finish up on this. This is really what good performance management looks like. Okay, so we start with our objectives or our behavior standards. If next step on the wheel, moving around clockwise, is TMC. That means train, mentor, or coach. So if somebody's brand new in our organization and we don't have the sense that they should know exactly how to do things, or it's a new skill that we're teaching them, then we have to train them. And that means we tell them how to do it. We go through the step-by-step approach, we show them videos, hands-on, whatever. That's training. Mentoring is kind of this further point along the journey where they've had that basic training, but they're still getting familiar with it. So we're in the room as they do the operation, or we're standing with them as they do cash up on their own, guiding them, helping them move forward. And then coaching is something at the end of the pathway where they have the skills and they come to you with questions about it, and then you're confident in their basic skill and knowledge level, so you can say, well, how do you think we should approach that? Let's say a doctor comes to you to create an estimate, which they've been trained and they're perfectly good at their billing, but it's a very rare procedure, and they're going, hey, how should I build this thing up? And you might go, well, listen, how do you think we should build that up? What would your approach be? And they'll tell you what they're thinking, and if it sounds like a good fit, then you just let them get on with it. Okay. Coaching is where you eventually want to get up to. Okay, but we have to be aware of where somebody's skill level is in order to know which of those three management styles or leadership styles to deploy. Once we've done that and we're satisfied they're capable of doing the job, we leave them to get stuff done. And of course, once they get really good at it, we don't need to stand over their shoulder at all. Like, you don't stand in the exam room with your doctors all day long. You probably should a little more than you do, but you don't have to once you know they've got the basic cycle. We let them get stuff done, we measure the outputs of that stuff, and then we check in with them. And here's the difference between the annual review and the check-in. The check-in is something that a good leader should be doing multiple times every day with their teams. So there's kind of the casual, informal piece of feedback. The check-in really is a feedback session. Okay, so there's a feedback structure that we can drop into the check-in that says, hey, when you answered that phone, you answered it in 3 rings. You really smiled when you answered the phone, and I could hear your voice, like it sounded happy. And that warmth would have connected with our client. I listened to the way you handled that customer, and you did a great job of listening and asking questions and clarifying. And then you made the appointment, like you offered them a couple of times, you arranged a time that was good for them, you signed off, you repeated back so they understood everything that was going on, and I saw you set the reminder process in place. That was an amazing customer experience. Thank you for doing it like that. Please do it that way in future, and I just want to recognize you for that. There's a little check-in, piece of feedback and check-in that lets someone know they met the objective, they're doing a good job, and they feel. That's what performance management in the microcosm looks like. So you should be catching people in the act of doing things right and giving them liver treats for it, because that buys you the emotional, the relationship capital to catch them in the act of doing something wrong. Hey, listen, I just overheard that phone call, and I noticed it took 10 rings, and when you answered it, you sounded kind of glum. What's going on in that? Let's talk about that, because when you sound glum and it takes ages, like, it's the reason it's part of our behavior standards and our training manual is because we want our customers to feel loved. So tell me what was going on there. So you get curious, right? You're asking questions like, what went on? And now you can get to the crux of why they didn't do it great. And then maybe they say, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I had 10 other things on my plate and they were all super important. I couldn't drop it. I know it's important. And maybe you get some feedback that the system's overloaded. Or maybe they're like, you know what? I had a crappy morning with my husband or wife, and I just wasn't in a good space. But you know what? You're right. I'm going to bring a better game to work. You can have that conversation. Or maybe they blow up at you. Who knows? Who knows what happens next? But you're holding people accountable in those micro moments. And it's those micro moments that come together to form your culture. That's the line in the sand that you draw. And in the same way that you don't rub a dog's nose in their poop, ever, hopefully, but certainly not 3 hours after the poop happens because they have no idea what's happening, far better to interrupt the behavior and take them to the right place to do the poop, right? And then give the liver treats, right? So it's the same with people. Catch them in the act as they're doing it, give them immediate feedback, and guide them to what you'd like to see done differently. So that's the micro check-in. The next level of check-in is you're going to sit down maybe once a week, or once every 2 weeks, or once every month, depends how competent they are at their jobs. And now you're going to have an actual little mini review. How are you getting on? How are you? How are you progressing towards your objectives? Are you meeting them all? Are there any areas where we feel there's opportunity for growth? Are there any things you're struggling with? And that's a little bit more of a structured conversation. Okay, but again, it's objective focused. And then the once a year thing is not about looking backwards at all. It's about looking forwards. Okay, what are our objectives for the coming year? What things do we want to build on? Or do we just need to do everything the same? What's next? That's what the annual meeting should do. It should be a goal-setting meeting for the next 12 months. And then you have your micro moments of feedback to guide the little behavior, because there are low stakes. They're taps on the shoulder to change the flock direction. Not like once the sheep has bolted and now the whole team's trying to go the wrong way. Micro moments, low risk, low stakes, little guiding moments, and lots of liver treats. Okay. That is how you set about delivering good performance. Okay. And that's why I think we need to kill the annual review. Okay. So there you go. There's the better loop. Set a clear objective, give your folks the training they need, let them get on with it, measure, feedback, and maybe loop around. Did they meet the objective? If so, great. If not, what other training do they need or feedback? I need to learn to spell training better, right? How are they doing? Measure more. All the while giving feedback, because feedback really is the breakfast of champions, and it is what helps people grow. So there you go. Don't be a seagull leader. You know, seagulls, I live in Brighton. I look out my window right now, I can see like 3 seagulls. And if you ever visit Brighton, and I suggest, and you get like some fries, some chips, be careful of the seagulls. Because what seagulls do, and why we call it seagull management or seagull leadership, is seagulls flying above everybody, make a ton of noise, and crap on everyone beneath. Right, and that's what we're doing with our annual reviews. Like, we're building them up into these huge, once a year, high stakes, high stress things. Generally, we show up with all the things we didn't like people to have done in the last year. Or, as Carrie said in the comments, like, we link that's the way of giving raises. But if you're giving feedback that somebody's not doing that great a job, and then you give them a raise the next month, what does that say? Like, what is the message when it comes to performance when you're doing that? Personally, I think you should link set your goals for the coming year. And if somebody achieves those goals, then yes, by all means, give them a raise. But make sure the feedback, the ongoing review, is happening in the minutes, the hours, the weeks, and the months as you move through the year, not in the higher stakes game, which is once a year annual review. I hope that makes sense. All right, so the takeaway, we're at our final destination. All of the things I've talked about here really are components of leadership. So who you hire, the system you use to perform, and how you act as a leader. They're the things that are going to make the biggest difference. I promise you, you don't need another client walking in your door to get higher performance and better value out of your practices, to have more fun in your work. What you need are stronger leadership skills. And if you work on those things, ironically, though unsurprisingly, you build a better culture, which will help you attract better people, which will help you attract more clients as well, because happy teams get better reviews. Happy teams get fewer bad reviews because their clients are more engaged with the business and they feel like they're cared for, so they're more forgiving of mistakes. And happy teams definitely contribute to fewer management and leadership ulcers and burnout. All right. So that's what I've got for you today, folks. Now, I'm going to let me take some questions, and I'd love to just tell you just very briefly about leaders. If you're liking what you're hearing, and you're interested in, I know you had a question about leaders earlier, then the leaders program starts. We're on Wednesday, so it starts next week, which is February the 6th. Okay, and VetX Leaders is kind of it's like a bobsled run. We are going to go fast, we're going to go hard, and we're going to keep the focus narrow. 6 months, kind of intensive training. Okay, so there are 12 training webinars on the 3 subject areas we've covered today. So we will be starting with performance management, because you have people right now who who you can get more and have better relationships if you start implementing performance management. So we will go deep on how to get your values, how to write your behavior statements, how to write your objectives and how to use those, the performance system, and also how to deal with the difficult people in your team and have those conversations and make them a lot easier for you. Okay. Component 2 is going to be then, okay, well, you're going to have to hire newer, better people. So how can we build out your hiring process? We'll go through four training sessions on your recruitment process. And then we'll wind up with 4 sessions on your leadership. So we're going to work on performance leadership, hiring leadership, and personal leadership. And at the end of that, you will be a different beast to what you started, I guarantee it. In addition to the training sessions, you're going to have 4 group coaching sessions. Now, these sessions, it looks like there's maybe going to be about 35 to 40 people as part of the leaders group. This is your wolf pack. I know that any one time, probably 20% of folks are going to show up to the sessions. So I would be surprised if we have as many as 10 people in the group coaching sessions each time. AKA, you're going to get FaceTime with me and you're going to bring your problems to that session. We're going to dissect your challenges, unpack them, and give you tools or tips to move forward. And accountability from the rest of the wolf pack to keep going, to keep moving forward, okay? The last thing, you're going to get toolkits and frameworks, okay? So I'm going to give you list of questions or access to, I'm going to show you my job ads and share my job ads with you. Okay, and I'm happy to do that because my job ads work for me, but your clinic's different. No point in you copying my job ad. That's not going to work for you. You have to go out and build and write your own job advert. But if you see mine, I can give you templates on these things, makes your life so much easier. It's the first step that's the hardest. So by giving you these toolkits and frameworks for each session, it's going to make it easier for you to implement. And it's all about action. Okay, that's why we're keeping the focus narrow. Conferences are great for networking. They're great for fun. They're great for having some beers. They're great for re-energizing, but they suck for results because they're too wide. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. Leaders isn't. Like, we are going deep on performance management, and I will be, personally taking this class. So it's action that's going to get you the results. So that combination, those 3 things, and we've been doing it with the VetX Thrive community for the last 1.5 years. We know that combination of training, coaching, frameworks works great to get people results, okay? And as a little thank you for your coming on today, I have a little $200 discount for you. So right now the price is $11.95 to join VetX Leaders. But if you use that promo code webinar19, so go to vetxleaders.com and use that promo code webinar19, then that will drop your price down to $9.95, and that will be good through till I think the end of Saturday. So you have got 3 or 4 days to mull that over. But action equals results. So don't mull over too long. And if you've been advertising and talking about this for a while, and I know a few of you have been to my talks before. So if you want to make things happen, take action now. That's my advice to you. Okay, you get in there and you think it blows chunks and you think, this isn't for me, I'm not getting any value out of it. I'll give you your money back. Like, you guys know me. I am, this is too small an industry to make goof ups and make enemies. So if you're not getting value and you're doing the work, that's the thing. You've got to show up to the sessions and do the work. And there's one other thing. You give me feedback and you give me the opportunity to put it right. If those 3 things happen and you're still not happy, I will give you every cent back. I don't see that happening, because for $9.95 to get all of that content, we're going to crush it. And the reason I'm doing that at that price is because there is just so much pain out there, and it's horrible to see people struggling in veterinary medicine at the level of the associate doctors, but also for managers as well. And it's totally avoidable. Okay, it can be completely different. So please jump on. The detailed curriculum for VetX Leaders is there. As I say, that discount will, I think, deactivate on Saturday. So you've got today, tomorrow, Friday to to take that offer up. Webinar 19 is what you use, and otherwise, have a lovely afternoon or evening wherever you are, and I hope to see you as part of the leaders group again very, very soon. All the very best. Be safe, be well, be happy. Ta-ta.